In this episode, closed versus open chain exercises.
The sun is shining, the birds are chirping, the bacon is sizzling. Welcome to the Daily Swole.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 242 of the Daily Mother Swole. Remember, when I flex, you flex, we all flex and make gains. So welcome to the only podcast where you can watch a human being live grow on camera. Welcome to the Swolenormous podcast, Daily Swole, episode 242. Today's episode is closed chain versus open chain exercises. Thanks for joining me live on Facebook every day at 12 noon Eastern Time at Swolenormous. Thanks for watching on YouTube and also listening in on SoundCloud and iTunes for the podcast. So thank you for joining me however you are joining me. This episode is kind of stemming from a conversation that popped into my head yesterday. We're talking in my premium group, those of you that are members of my Swolenormous premium exclusive Facebook group, where we do a lot of private broadcasts. And I had a poll and we had a conversation going about dumbbells and barbells. And this is similar to that concept. I'm not going to specifically talk about that. That will be coming up this week. But because it's the new year and everyone's getting back into the gym, we're talking a lot about program design. We're talking about getting started, the different things you can be doing, what's better, what you have available, all the different aspects of starting a fitness program, how much time you have, how much experience you have, the amount of volume that you're going to do, what type of exercise you're going to choose, all the acute variables, all the things that you can choose during your workout, all the things you can choose and you can change on a daily basis. Now, that's a difference between, that's what an acute variable is. And acute means specific. Acute means in that short term. So when you go to the gym today or you go to the gym tomorrow, you have choices to make, right? You have choice to make. You can choose to do a certain exercise. You can choose to do a certain series of exercises. You can choose the order. You can choose how many reps you do. You can choose how fast you do those reps. You can choose the weight that you could choose the actual weight. You could choose whether those exercises are with dumbbells, with barbells, with bands, with cables, with kettlebells. You can choose the rest periods between those sets, between the exercises. You can choose all sorts of different aspects. You can choose everything. And this is where it's a positive and it could also be a negative. So without getting too far off topic, I want to explain why it could be a positive or negative. It's a positive because you have a lot of options. You have endless options. This is great for people that have injuries. You can work around injuries. You can manipulate things. It gives you a lot of options to change things so you can mix things up. It also gives you too many options. And I talk all the time about adaptation, how the body needs to adapt. You have so many options. You have so many choices. You have so many things to do in a gym that people often get overwhelmed and either don't go, or they get overwhelmed and try to do so many different things every time they go. Their body has trouble adapting to any one thing. They lose the ability to create mastery, to create that movement pattern complex and that mapping in their brain where they can actually become more skilled at a specific exercise. They try to get better at too many things, which doesn't work well for the body. That's one of the reasons why CrossFit has a lot of injuries and a lot of failures, because you cannot be a jack of all trades. You cannot be a master of everything. That's pretty much the exact opposite of adaptation. You cannot be good at everything. You can be somewhat decent and understand how to do things, but to physically be able to do everything really well, that's when your body gets hurt, because you try to do things really well and at a high level with things that you can't possibly be expert at. That's why they have specialties in education. That's why they have specialties in every single field and every single profession, because when you focus on one thing, you get excellent at it. When you do a little bit of everything and you overload at an expert level everything, you're going to get hurt. And that's one of the reasons why people get hurt. So one of them, and that's not limited to that style of training, but anytime you're not allowing your body adaptation, anytime you're not allowing your body adaptation to an exercise stimuli, you risk injury. especially if you constantly expose yourself to it and you're doing fast movements and a lot of overload and you're using acceleration and gravity. It can get messy real quick, right? Closed chain versus open chain exercises is one of those choices that's even more basic. That's even more basic because you have things like machines, you have things like cables and bands, dumbbells, kettlebells, barbells. You have options for exercises that put your body in a certain environment. Now, closed chain and open chain is similar to meaning exactly what it sounds like. When you have an open chain exercise, you have a part of your body that is open to the environment, free to rotate, that's not locked in place. For example, when I do an overhead press with dumbbells, I'm pressing up, I can rotate my arms in, they're free to move in space. And one of the benefits of having an open chain exercise is that it allows your body to, in a sense, customize its own movement. It allows your body to move more freely in space, which can possibly allow your joints to rotate to avoid friction inside the joint. It also stimulates more neuromuscular control. It demands and commands your body to need to control the weight more. And that's going to stimulate more stabilizer muscles. That's going to stimulate more muscle fibers in general. Hold on. They're trying to find my gains. If you heard that, there's a siren. Trying to catch my gains. I steal everyone's fucking gains. I'm the gain bandit. Getting back to the closed and open chain. I think they're gone now. I don't think they found me. Open chain can be safer. It's more demanding, and it's more overloading on the neuromuscular system. Closed chain can be very dangerous. It can be very dangerous, but let's explain what closed chain is. That's like an overload on a shoulder press where your hips are locked in place on a machine and your arms are locked in place where there's no room for rotation, there's no room for customization. You're pushing a machine, you're locked at the beginning, at the origin, and at the finishing point. There are also exercises like barbells, like a barbell bench press, where even though it's an open chain, you can move the bar around, and technically it's an open chain, it's more closed chain than a dumbbell press, where you can move individual weights. So you have kind of different degrees and subcategories of closed and open chain if you want to get really technical. But the bottom line is when you're doing things like a hack squat, where you're doing a squat on a machine where your shoulders are locked in place and your feet are locked in place, your knees have to rotate however they can best rotate in that environment. They're not able to shift around and find their own customized range of motion or joint angle as you go through the exercise, and you're at risk. You could be doing some joint shearing, some joint stress inside the muscle because your body can't move freely. You're locked in position. And when you lock yourself in position, there's a couple things that's going on. When you lock yourself in position, you don't have to stabilize as much. So potentially, you can lift more because you're not focusing on stabilizing the weight. You can just drive with force. And that's why some people can put a lot of more weight on machines or plate-loaded machines or on a barbell than you can with dumbbells because you're stabilizing less force. You're controlling less variables in the environment. Not only are you trying to push, but you're not having to worry about the weight falling on your face or falling on the ground. You can just create brute force. So it's sometimes, in a way, good for motor neuron activity and motor unit synchronization and stimulation, but it's not the same benefit for stabilizer muscles inside the joint and possibly overall muscle activation because you're doing less work in a sense. So it gets more complicated, but I'm talking more about the fact that a closed chain exercise limits your movement. A pull-up is an open chain because your hips and your lower body is free moving and it's floating around. Your body can rotate and you can arch, you can round, your body will adjust and stabilize, but move where there is a decreased risk of injury. Your body will always go towards the path of least resistance to avoid injury, to avoid shearing, to avoid stress in the joint. It's one of the benefits of being a human being. Your body will default to survival and to protecting itself. So an open chain allows for free movement, it allows for joint rotation, allows for a decreased risk of injuries. There's more control required. And there is kind of a demand for more muscle activity because you're controlling in an unstable or more unstable environment. This is another reason why, if you've ever done a pull-up on one of those machines where you kneel, it's easier to do those pull-ups assisted than it is to do an assisted free weight pull-up if someone's spotting you or if you're using a band. The more muscle you have to control, the more challenging it is. So when you choose a barbell, when you're choosing a machine, when you're choosing a dumbbell, and this is the conversation that we're having in Premium, it was more about which ones do you prefer in general. Not that you always use one, you can only use dumbbells or you can only use barbells, but which do you use in general and why? Why do you prefer one over the other? And most people overwhelmingly went with the dumbbell. I am very old school. I love dumbbells, and in general, I use dumbbells, but if I had to choose one, if someone was like, okay, here's a gym, you only have one piece of equipment you can only use, I would choose a barbell because of the combination between locking in position, the force production possible, the basic lifts. It's just simple, it's classic, and I like throwing heavy weight around. But in general, I use dumbbells. The more open chain, if you have more injuries, if you have aches, if you have tendinitis, if you have things that are bothering you, that are wearing away at you, more open chain is safer, more open chain causes more control, more open chain is more customizable. If you are locking yourself in position, you are setting yourself up for potential risk of joint grinding, limiting the motion within the joint. The more capacity and ability you have to customize your movement, the less risk you will be for injury. At the same time, if you're not used to unstable environments, if you're not used to controlling your body, it could also pose a risk. If you have weaker joints, if you're new to exercise, doing walking lunges, doing single leg squats, doing free weight exercises could also be a challenge. That's why it's always good to have someone who knows what they're talking about in your corner when you're starting, because that lack of stability can also be a risk for injury at the beginning of your training. So it's great to use a blend. Generally, if you had to default to machines or free weights, always default to free weights, but always default to proper form, default to more moderate to higher repetitions with lighter weight so you can control the weight. Don't bounce on the eccentric, on the lowering, or on the lengthening part of the muscle of any exercise. On the lengthening part of the movement, use slow, controlled movements. Exaggerate that eccentric contraction. Exaggerate that lengthening, that lowering of the pull-up, that lowering of the dumbbell row, that lowering of the bench press, that lowering of the curl, the lowering or the raising of the tricep extension when the elbow is flexing. Make sure you are controlling the exercise, because the more tension that's on the muscle, the more control that you are exercising during the movement. I know that's a little bit of a pun. The more control you are implementing, the more tension that you will build inside the muscle, internal tension that will overcome that external force. So it's all about control. It's all about making sure the muscle that you're trying to work is doing the work. And that's what this is all about. So closed versus open chain, there are some pros and cons, some good and bad, some up and down. Those are the differences. That's how you use them. And thank you for joining me for episode 242 of the Daily Mother Swole. I just want to thank all the new members of Premium. Thank you for joining. If you're loving these episodes and you want a little bit more of a taste and you want to jump into my Premium Facebook group, you could click the sign up button at the top of this Facebook page. You could also go to www.swolenormous.com and sign up right now, because I am going live in a few minutes after this broadcast to talk a little bit more in depth about this with my premium members. And you can fill out the application, sign up today to get exclusive access. We do almost daily live broadcasts, private broadcasts, group accountability meetings. We do program design, nutrition talks. We break down exercise, demos, corrective exercise, all different. It's a breadth of fitness. It's pretty much a fitness, high-level, serious community that's all about getting some sick fucking gains and sick results for 2017. So sign up today. Don't wait. Take advantage of this offer now. So thanks for joining me again for episode 242. Thanks for watching live on Facebook every day at 12 noon Eastern time. Thanks for listening on the podcast, SoundCloud, and iTunes. And of course, the YouTube. Thanks for watching my gains. Thanks for watching me grow live on camera. I appreciate it. I will see you tomorrow on Hump Day for episode 243 of the Daily Swole. Peace out. Catch you on Insta. Catch you on Snap. later, and I'll see you in premium in a few minutes.